Hello YouTube and hello viewers, and welcome back to yet another episode of creating our social API using Laravel. We're going to be continuing the series today with our mail, and remember we were doing this thing when we were registering our users, and basically when we registered a user we were sending an email off to our mail client or mail trap that was trapping all the mails. Now the reason we were doing that is because if you remember, inside our database, in our YouTube database, we had, sorry, let me just get rid of this, is on our users table, we had a data structure here for email verified ads, and we need to go towards those steps to verify that email. Now, there was a simple way of doing it, is that we could have just sent an email that would have clicked the email, and then that would have worked. And we could have just quite easily said, okay, well, if they click the email, we get the ID, for example, and we can say, okay, they've been verified. But that's not the best practice to do. What we can do is we can register this against tokens, and then we can check against that token and they can verify it that way. I am going to start showing you how to use things like text messages and things like that. So when they register, for example, they'll get a text message to their phone. They can verify that way with the code. We could do it that way too. There's numerous ways we can do this, but we'll just do it step by step. In the meantime, we're going to create basically another table here that's going to hold all our tokens that we're going to generate that they need to verify against, really. So let's get stuck straight into it. First things first is we need to create ourselves a new migration script. Dead easy. We've done this so many times. We can just use PHP artisan and it's make, and we're actually going to make a model because obviously this is what we're going to need, and we're just going to call this user activation token. Remember, we don't call it tokens, because once we make the model and put -m at the end, which is going to make migration, that's going to put the plural at the end, so it's going to be called user activation tokens. So we hit enter on that. That's going to create ourselves a model and also a migration script for us. As we can see here, it's created our migration script. That's perfect. And basically what we want to do now is we just want to set it up. So let's jump into our project. And we should now have our user activation token model here. I should really move these into its own folder, but too late now in the tutorial, so we'll just keep going with how it is. But if we go down, we should have our database stuff. So database, migrations, and we have our new migration script here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just put in a few properties. One, we're obviously going to have the ID here, as we would always do. Then we'll have table, and we're going to just have it of string, and this is going to contain our token. So this is going to be our token in here that we're going to keep. And then what we can do is we can, let's see if we can steal something from here. So we're just going to grab this user ID, saves us rewriting it again. So basically we're just going to reference the user ID inside of activation tokens. So we're just going to steal it like so and paste it in like that. So basically just making another table, another column called user ID, unassigned and indexed, and then foreign is the user ID against the ID in the users table. Again, straightforward. It's just so we can keep it all nice and clean together. And then all we need on that is just some timestamps on there. We're not going to do soft delete, because what we're going to do is once they actually use that token, we're going to just remove it completely, so they don't need it anymore. And that's pretty much it. You could add some more if you want. It's up to you. This is your project. As I say, I'll just do this on the fly. I don't really plan these sessions. I just think, what am I going to do today? And we just do it. So now that's pretty much set up. We just need to run our migration. So let's just jump into our project. Now I'm on Docker, so I'm just going to execute it into my Docker. I'm going to go into my project, which is Laravel. And I'm just going to run PHP artisan migrate. And that should migrate my new database, and it has. So this is my new table, and it has been created. If we jump into our database, refresh, we now have user activation tokens here. And basically all we're going to be filling in on this is the new token and a user ID. Once that user is registered, we need to add that in. Pretty straightforward. Now we just need to get to that point of doing that, and it's really simple to do. We're going to go back into our Laravel project, and we're just going to go back to where we register users. So let's actually just close all these because they're getting in the way. And let's look at our API and register. We've got auth controller and register. So we're just going to jump into that. So the auth controller, and we're going to look at our register here. So we're registering a user, which is pretty cool. And then we go to this user service and we register the user here. And then obviously once we get that, we get our user back. Now what we can do is once we get that user back, we can do a little bit of logic here to add that data into our table. Now to do this, we're going to obviously jump into another service, which is our user activation token service. So we have to create these. So I'm going to do these dead quick. So I'm just going to copy the status update one. So I'm just going to refactor and copy, and I'm just going to call this is it user activation token service, like so. So I'm just going to say okay. You don't have to split it into these services, but I like breaking it down as much as I can. Just makes it a little bit more easier. Just take those out, and now I just need to make sure that I have a repository contract. So we go into our repositories, and I'm just going to again steal this one, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to call this the activation token repository. I'm actually going to copy that because it's quite a mouthful. So we're going to copy that, say okay, get rid of all this because we don't need it, and change the name of this. So user repository, and obviously we haven't done the contract, so we need to make sure we add the contract. Again, we're just going to refactor and copy this file, paste in user activation token. So we got user activation token repository contract. I'm doing this dead quick because we've done this over and over again, and I don't want to spend too much time doing this all the time. So if you can't remember how to do it, just head back to one of my previous videos, and it's pretty straightforward. So that's set up now. So we go into we've got our contract set up. We've got our repository not quite finished because we need to implement our contract. Not the user repository, user activation token repository contract. And our user activation token service just needs a bit of updating as well. User activation token, and then this is our contract, user activation token repository contract. That is a very big mouthful. Activate token repository contract. Same here. And we just make sure it's a protected variable. Okay, now that's pretty much set up. We've got that all ready to go. Now we just go back into our auth controller, and we just need to register it in here. And again, remember, you can just always refer back to my previous videos if you want to. Oh, what happened there? My keyboard is dying, so please forgive me. When I press keys, things just happen, and I don't know why. So we're going to plug it into our user service. So user activation token service. And it's $user activation token service. Again, big mouthful. We just make sure that we declare it here, and we also declare it here as a helper, like so. And we'll just do the comment blocks because it's going to shout us because we've already got these ones in. And now we can use that service inside our register. So we just go this user activation token service, and this is going to be create new token. Like so, create new token. We don't need to pass anything to it because we're going to be creating a new token for this user. We could pass in the user ID if we wanted to, but we can use the auth ID. Actually, let's just pass in user ID. Probably a bit more easy if we just passed it in. So we can pass in the user ID here. So let's go into our token service and just make this function. So we just copy this, jump into our service, and we just do public function, paste it in. Obviously this is going to be user underscore ID, or we can just make it ID like that. Got our brackets. And this is where our logic is going to take place, and this is where we'll create our token. We can do some logic in here, or we can just jump straight into the contract if we want to, because it is dead simple. Or we could just do token, and now to make our token we can do it a few different ways. I'm just going to use something very simple, and this is using a str, and this is just a utility that we have with Laravel. Sorry, I lost my words then. So there's support here, and basically that string is going to belong to, and we can call this whatever we like, but we're going to have it as random. Sorry, we can't call this whatever we like. It needs to be random. My words today. And we're going to declare how random we want this to be. So how long do we want it to be? So We could make I don't know, let's go 16 in length. So not too long, because we might have to change the database if it's too long. So let's just keep it as short as we can. So that's creating our token. And that's just going to be a random number that we're going to put into the database. So now all we need to do is pass into our contract, create token, is the user ID, because that's what we're going to be passing in, and also the token. And we don't need to return that because we're just creating a token here. So if we go into our contract and add these in, actually we want to instantiate that as an integer. Go into our contract and let's add it in. Public function, create token. And these are all going to be integers. I think that's actually a string, so we're just going to leave that one for now. And comment block that if we want, just to make it look nice and neat. And we need to make sure that we declare that in the repository. Again, I've said that we're doing this really fast because we've done it so many times. We want to move on to some other things. So now to create the token, remember we just wrap around a try catch. Catch. And we can do that. And we need exception. Oops, not that exception. Wrong way. Exception, $E. And that's it. So now we just need to do a little bit of logic here. Now, because we're using this user activation token, we're going to say $new token equals, and we can say new user activation token. So it's coming from app. That'd normally be model, but it's not set that way. And then we can quite easily just say new token. And we can just, instead of fill this time, we can do a little bit different so you can see the difference. We can have user ID. So if we look at the database, it's user underscore ID is equal to this user ID here. So we duplicate it. The next one's going to be the token. So we can grab the token, pass the token in, and do token like this. So this is saving to individual fields instead of using the fill method. We have done this before. It's just, in this case, just a little bit more quicker for us. Okay, and if we have an error, we can just, I don't know, we can die and dump just in case we do get an error during this process, and we'll just get the message. I don't think so we'll have an error, but we'll see when we get there. Okay, so that's creating our token. We go back and let's see if our logic is correct. So we create the token. It comes from our service, which is pretty cool. So our service does that and create a new token. And we're registering it as soon as we made the user. Okay, that's perfect. And then we send the mail. Now, obviously we want to have, oh, actually we're going to need a return here because we're going to pass the token through the user. So we're actually going to have to return some of this. So let's go back and let's actually return some of this logic. So we can return $new token. Because we need that token, because we're going to attach it into our email today. So let's go back and we want to return this back. So return back. And we go one step back and we're going to call this $token equals that. And now we should have a new token that gets registered, which is perfect. And let's actually see if this works. So let's DD here and let's see what the token comes back as, just so we can test it in our code. Let's just hop over into Postman and we're just going to register a new user. So we're going to call it Wazza1 and send. Okay, so we get an error message. That is because we haven't instantiated the contracts. Dead easy to do. We can quite easily go into our providers, into our repository service provider, and we're going to add our new bind. So remember, every time we make these contracts, we have to make a bind, and it's going to be activate. Oh, was it activate? I can't remember. It was user activate token repository contract. Mouthful, that one. User activate repository. So those are the ones you just want to instantiate. So now we do that again and send. And we get a DD back. And that's pretty cool. Now we get this user ID, so we know which user we've just registered. And also we have this token, which is here. And this is the token we're going to send to the end user as reference in the email to click this link, and they'll then get forwarded, and then we check it, which will be in the next episode, but we want to make sure that we can see that inside our email. So to do that, let's hop back into our code, back to our auth controller, and if we look carefully, we have the token here. Now to get that token, we're just going to do token. Now this is important because we're going to pass only this token through into this mail. We could send the whole token if we wanted to, but again, this is just preference. So if we had to make a new user, so waza2 send, we just get the token number, and you'll see that's different to what it previously was. So we're just going to send this into our mail like so. Okay, but before that, I want to show you something else which we're going to need to do. If you have a look here, there is something called URL, like so. Now URL, if we make a new user and send that, like so, you'll notice that we get all this jargon. But basically what we need to be aware about is that when we're sending this check, for example, we want to make sure that we get the full URL of what we're sending to the end user. And it does become slightly complicated, not too complicated to do. And I'm going to show you step by step how we actually create that. So instead of writing my whole URL here to send them to, and I'll show you there's a reason behind that, it's because when we send the mail off to the actual user itself, we want to make sure that they get the right mail. Okay, so let's jump back into our project, and let's just pass in token, and we'll get to this point when we need to. Let's jump into our mail. We need to register our token, so $token, because we're passing it in. This is something new, and we're going to call it this token, $token. Okay, and this is just shouting because I don't have that, but I also need to make a protected one of $token. We could also just, I don't know, put these comment blocks here, finish off that comment block there. Okay, and so what we need to do is we need to pass in a new parameter into here. So remember, we can add all these parameters, and we're just going to have token is this token, and we don't need anything else on the end of that. And all we need to do then is we can update this value inside our resource, view, and mail. On our register user blade, let's duplicate this line and just say token is $token for now. Okay, so don't get too stressed about it for now. We're just sending some simplistic logic in of what we want. So let's test this out. Go to Postman, and we're going to send, actually I think my Postman has crashed for some reason. I have to close it and start it again. Not sure what happened there. Couldn't type in anything. Okay, and let's send off waza4 and send off. So we can see we've now got this register email sent, and we need to open this up inside our mail client, which was mail trap. Okay, and I'm just going to check my box, and here we go. We've got this new register user mail here, and we can see we've got the token just outputting right here. And what we're going to do with this token is we're actually going to turn this token into a URL, and that is very easy to do. Let's do that. It's dead simple. We're just going to jump into our register user mail, and we're just going to put a little bit of logic into this register user mail, because at the moment we've just got this token, and we don't really want to do that. We want to turn it into something that they can click. And to do that, dead easy. We're going to make a new variable called URL, and that's going to equal something. So we're going to have URL, and it's going to be associated to a path. Now, we will be, and probably not specifically in this episode, but we will be in our API, we're going to have to create ourselves a new route. And this route is going to have to do the check for us. And actually, we could do that now. We might as well make the route now, and we'll just put, we won't put any logic in it, but we can set it up so we know what we're doing. So we could make a new route, and this is going to be a post route, and we can call it activate email, just like that. So activate underscore email, and we could just call this activate email, like that. So basically, we're going to push them to this URL here called activate email, which is going to be this function here that's going to have activate email. But in this activate email, we're actually going to pass our code. So the code that we have. Okay, you can call this whatever. You could call it ID or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it code because it's going to refer back to my activation token. If I jump into my little Laravel project here and do PHP artisan route list, again, we've done this many times. We can see I now have this API uses activate email / code. So I'm actually going to grab just this bit here, not the code, because obviously that's going to be separate for when we pass the parameters in, but we're going to need this to forward the person onto when they click the email link. So let's jump into our project and let's go to our register user mail. And in here, we're just going to put in a path of API /users /activate email /. Then we're just going to concatenate our token like so. Okay. And basically this is going to give us a full URL path, and we can check that if I die and dump here inside this URL like so. So let's give that a go in Postman. Let's send off number 5 and send it off. We get the die dump. And if we have a preview, you can see it's actually pushing me to the correct location, and also it's attaching my code onto the end of this. Pretty neat how we do this is that basically we just get the full URL string and we can just forward them onto using that URL however we like. So let's test that out. Let's go into our project again, and instead of passing in the token this time, we're going to pass in this URL. And we're not going to call it token, we're going to call this URL just for reference sake. Obviously need to change it into our blade, and we'll just call this URL on the blade. Oops, not that URL. $URL. Like so. Let's register a new user. I have so many where's right now inside this project. Now wait a bit. We can see that we've now registered someone. Let's go into my emails. And we can see I have an email, and now I have a full location link that someone could copy and paste into here, or we can do something different with it. And what we could do is we could just add some HTML jiggery boogery into our template just in here. And what we could do in here is we could just add what is known as an HRef, and this is just a generic HTML element that you can create. So HRef is equal to, and it's going to be our URL like so. And all we're going to do is with that, we're just going to call this link or click to activate in this example. And then obviously we just close off that A. And that's basically just going to give us a link that we can click on to activate the account. Okay, so we can call this activate. Save. And let's send that off again. Again, we're going to have to make a new user. So as a 7 it's going to be. Send it off. We can see that it is successful. We jump back into our mail trap and look at our register user. We've now got this URL that we can click to activate. And you'll notice that at the bottom, it's sending me to laravel.test /API /users /activate email and the token. And in the next episode, we're actually going to use this to then register the user. So I know this was a lot to take in. It was quite a big episode, this one, to be honest. There was a lot going on. But really the main dimension of it was that we created a new table that we can hold all our activation tokens in, and we can actually check them if we wanted to here. We've now got all these tokens all registered against our user IDs or the new users that we've got in. And what we're going to do in the next episode is we're going to check against these to see if they are similar to what we're getting inside our URL that we're passing in here. I don't know if you want to try and do that for maybe some homework before the next episode, which is probably going to be tomorrow. But if you want to give it a go, maybe show me your results in the comments or let me know in Discord so we can just have a chat. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you hit the like button. If you really liked it, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you extremely liked it, make sure you share this with all your friends. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.